Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Rainbows are one of the first things we learn to color and paint as kids. There's something so satisfying about laying down paint in every single color on the color wheel, and because this is a common subject matter for preschoolers and kindergartners to explore, you would think that painting a rainbow would be the easiest thing in the world. But it turns out getting that perfect, soft, transparent blend between colors against a moody sky takes practice, a lot of practice. When I set about to create an easy tutorial on painting realistic rainbows, I discovered that they were surprisingly difficult. In fact, I did 6 different practice runs before finally painting a rainbow landscape that I was somewhat happy with. And I think it's safe to say rainbows are something I will continually be working on. So in today's video, I thought I would share with you all of my do's and don'ts of painting rainbows in watercolor so that you too can chase your perfect rainbow. Now, when I say don't do this, I am by no means trying to impose hard and fast rules on anyone. At the end of the day, you are the artist and you can paint it any way you want to. These tips are simply meant to help you learn from my mistakes in my efforts to create a particular kind of look with my rainbow painting. That look I'm trying to get is one that looks natural, realistic, that blends into a stormy landscape, and that has only soft edges and isn't too garish or bright in color. So let's begin with all of the don'ts of painting rainbows. Don't paint your rainbow wet on dry. Now you can paint it this way. In fact, starting the painting using wet paint on dry paper will yield some interesting results. You can see for this example, I used a flat brush and painted the colors quickly side by side with wet paint on dry paper. The colors kind of blended together, but overall it looked too stark and illustrative for my taste, and I don't really like the hard edges that formed along the outside borders of the rainbow. Painting wet on dry feels like a natural and intuitive way to paint, especially when you're first starting out with watercolors. This is generally how kids try to paint rainbows, and the rainbows end up looking a lot like this. Nothing wrong with it, it just wasn't what I was going for. Don't apply so much water that you have puddles. So perhaps you've decided to try using the wet and wet technique, which is when you apply wet paint to damp or wet paper surface, but you aren't sure just how wet your paper should be. We're on the right track now, but here's something to watch out for. Don't apply so much water on your paper that you have puddles. Pooling water equals zero control. We need to at least be able to control the colors enough so that they can be applied side by side without being obliterated by the presence of too much water. You can see in this example that there was so much water on the paper, the red just started bleeding in all directions. This can be controlled simply by soaking up some of the water with your brush and dabbing it on your towel or paper towel. Even with a rocky start like this, the painting can still be salvaged. Don't dip into a new color without first rinsing your brush. In this practice run, I dipped my brush in the purple right after painting the blue stripe and ended up with an unevenly bluish purple stripe on my rainbow. Don't overblend the edges. My next mistake on this painting was to paint in the blue sky right next to the red of the rainbow, and I allowed the blue and red to touch and then tried brushing and blending it out. I ended up with an ugly brown color on the top of my rainbow. I don't recommend that. Don't use pigments straight out of the tube. It will look too vibrant. Water the paint down a little before applying it to your paper for a more realistic pastel look. Another tip is that you don't actually need to use orange paint. If you apply red and then yellow, wet and wet, side by side, the colors will blend on their own to create the orange between them. Now, before we move on to the do's of painting rainbows, I know you don't want to miss any new tutorials, so subscribe if you're new here and hit that like button if you haven't already done so. This helps me as a creator to keep making more helpful free videos like this. Here are some do's when painting rainbows. If you watch a lot of watercolor tutorials, you've definitely heard this tip before. Do use good quality cotton watercolor paper. Your paper is the #1 supply that can directly influence your results. You can follow all of the instructions perfectly, but if your paper is cheap, it's going to show and your results just won't look the same as in the tutorial. Do use the wet and wet technique. We're going for soft, diffused edges here, so wet and wet is the technique you want to employ. Use enough water on your paper so that you have a nice glossy surface. It helps to pre-mix your paints too, because you'll want to work quickly before your paper dries, and having your colors all ready to go watered down to the right value and consistency will definitely save you time. Do start with the sky. Something I finally learned on the 6th or 7th try was that I liked how my rainbow looked when I painted a dark sky around the rainbow shape first. I used indigo to create a moody, stormy sky, painting right up to the edges of my rainbow, and then one at a time I painted in each strip of color, working quickly on the still wet paper. Do rinse your brush between colors. If you want your colors to remain pure, be sure to rinse your brush in between, and then to control the amount of water in your brush, dab it on a paper towel after rinsing. Start with a little watered down red, rinse your brush and dry it, then mix up some yellow on your palette, rinse the brush again, pat it slightly dry, then green, and so on. That's the process you should follow for all of the colors. Because you need to work quickly when painting wet and wet, and you're rinsing frequently, your water will get murky. So do have more than one water jar. Rinsing your brush in dirty water can also affect the vibrancy of your rainbow, so I like to use 2 water jars, one that gets really dirty and the other for completely cleaning the brush between colors. Do practice. Doing multiple practice runs like this is the best way to get a feel for how your paints, brushes, and paper will all work for you, how much water to use, how much pigment, and how to time everything. Practice is really the only way to gain mastery over any medium, so I can't stress it enough. Log your brush miles and you will become confident in your skills. Let me know in the comments what you think of this video, and if you too have struggled to paint the perfect rainbow, tell me about it or tag me on Instagram so I can check it out. Thanks so much for watching.